Vibe Show 97.9. Listen, tonight it's going to be an epic moment. I'm telling y'all. Listen, we've been waiting on this one. A lot of people been waiting on this one right here. We got a legend that's going to be joining us on the show tonight. So listen, y'all make sure that y'all keep it locked in and don't go nowhere. It's the Vibe Show 97.9. Ooh. Vibe Show 97.9, home of the most exclusive guest on the planet. Y'all already know how we do tonight. I'm super excited. I got one of my favorites joining us on the show tonight. I'm talking about legend and lead MC, member of the legendary Arrested Development Group. Y'all already know this guy right here, the one and only Speech.
Brother.
What's happening, man?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing really good. Just left my family's house. My mother-in-law, my father-in-law, sister-in-law, they were all cooking like a big dinner.
Yeah.
And so we had fun with my kids and my wife. So, just coming here to do this interview now.
So listen, I already know it was some good eating going on right there.
It was. It's crazy. It's crazy.
I already know. Listen, man, I definitely gotta thank you so much for this amazing opportunity, just taking time out of your Sunday, you know what I mean, to come and vibe out with us for a little while. So thank you so much for me and the team.
No problem, man. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, like I said, definitely have always, since you hit the scene, been one of my favorite MCs. I'm not gonna lie. So it's definitely an honor for me to and shout out to Strong Jewel for making this connection happen,
yes,
man. Because
shout out to Strong Jewel, she's dope.
It's interesting, man, because it's like I wanted you on the show last year, and it was just funny, just trying to find the connection to be able to get to you. And I'm speaking on divine intervention, how all this stuff just comes together. And you have Jewel knew you, and I was like, what? I was like, can you get in touch with it? I would love to have Speech on the show, and here we are right now.
Which is a blessing. Yes, Jewel is a special sister, man, and she's a lover of the art form, and she's just dedicated to the artistry and the artists. And so it was definitely an easy connection once she was involved. I was like, okay, it's on.
Absolutely. Now I got so much I wanna talk to you about. The interesting thing, though, with just diving into your story a lot, which was really amazing to me, just coming from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, being the first artist to submerge from there, and then coming from such a rich family background, man, so rooted in the community, rooted in the soil. Talk to me a little bit. Let's start there at that starting point. Talk to me about growing up there.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Being the first hip hop artist to ever blow up from there,
right,
was first of all honor, but also an interesting thing, because I didn't have a lot of peers that I could look to for advice, for hookups, for a come up,
right?
None of that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I think it was tough because you didn't see a lot of hope unless you created it yourself. You know what I mean? And so I talk about that a lot in my lyrics on our new album for the F and Love. There's a song called Building from the Bottom. And that definitely was the case coming from Milwaukee. Now, from a family standpoint, I was hugely blessed because my mother and father, both activists in the community, both
Right.
entrepreneurs. My mother owns the largest black newspaper in Wisconsin called the Milwaukee Community Journal, still open to this day. It's 45, 46 years
That's
old.
amazing too,
It
man.
is. It's amazing. Salute to my mom. She
Absolutely.
was the first black president of the National Newspaper Association, which is basically the association that has all the black newspapers under it. So she helped bring money to all the black newspapers across the nation. Just her vision, her leadership. So she's an amazing woman. Then my dad is an entrepreneur as well, and he owned everything from fast food restaurants to catering businesses to gas stations, all at different times, to nightclub, which is how I got into music, and activists as well. Both of them working with the paper. So,
Right.
you know, just seeing that kind of activism, seeing that kind of black involvement in the community, hiring people, creating job opportunities for people, creating black business from scratch. That was some amazing, shoulders to stand on, and I'm
Right.
very
Right.
grateful, man. Like right now, my dad is actually sick, and
Oh man. Prayers out
you
too. We're
know,
definitely gonna send some
thank
prayers
you.
up, man.
Thank you. I
Definitely.
really appreciate that. And he's 86 and he's not doing so well. So it hits me even harder to talk about him and just his legacy right now because,
Right.
like I said, he's not doing as well as that I wish he was. So anyway, yeah, so it's been a blessing to come from there and at the same time a hardship from a music standpoint because there wasn't a lot of people you could point to and say, okay, he made it from here. Like Al
Right.
Jarreau is obviously a legend, icon,
Absolutely.
and he's from Milwaukee, but he wasn't obviously in hip hop, and that was a whole nother era. So I didn't know him personally, and said I couldn't look to that as an example. So yeah, it was interesting.
Wow, man. Definitely, we definitely gonna collectively, send prayers out,
Thank you.
for your dad and stuff like that. And pray for fast healing.
Yeah, thank
Um,
you.
yeah, absolutely, and for the family as well, for strength, because with your dad being strong, and being that head of the house, and then seeing him, in a weak space, it
Exactly.
definitely hits us guys a little bit different. You know
It
what I
does,
mean?
doesn't it? Yeah, man.
Definitely.
It does.
So absolutely, man. So you know and that's interesting too, which ties into background is really really important as well. So that kind of explains the consciousness, and
Yeah,
because interestingly, man, like when you guys hit the scene, um to me it was something that was phenomenal. I thought that it was new, and more importantly, it was original. I like the fact that you guys were in your own lane. To me, yeah, we had conscious artists out there and stuff like that, but I just felt like the impact you guys had on it, because I felt like I connected more with AD, because the stuff that you guys were talking about was so relatable and so real. The
wow.
visuals were so easy to connect with. It wasn't far-fetched. You know how these videos be, man.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't have a private jet. I don't have the
exactly.
mansion
Yeah,
and all this, but I do understand walking in the park with my girl. You know
exactly
what I'm
right.
saying? And
Yeah,
you got,
yeah,
yeah, I understood that. Talk to me about the beginning, because you also started in the game early at 13 as a DJ, DJing in your dad's club.
yeah,
Talk to me about
exactly.
that a little bit.
Yes, I mean, I fell in love with music when I was 5. I saw the Jackson 5. They used to have a cartoon on Saturday mornings,
Uh,
and I fell in love with that, man. Like just seeing them dance and sing, and just seeing us as a people on TV back then was even fresh and original. And fell in love with music then. Then my dad had a nightclub that was hugely successful in Milwaukee. It was called the Fox Trap,
right.
and I was watching the DJs basically wield their way with the crowd every night. And I was like, man, at that young age of 12, 13, just getting out of eighth grade, becoming a freshman in high school. And I was like, what do I want to do? And that was the time when I realized I want to do music. Like I want to DJ. You know what I'm saying? Because
Right.
DJs, they get a chance to control the mood. They get a chance to bring somebody up if they're down. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
they're powerful, and I wanted to do something with that world, and I learned from some of those cats, and then hip hop was just becoming known to me, with stuff like the Sugar Hill Gang record that came out in '79,
Right.
um, the Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. He had a song called Grandmaster Flash, Adventures on the Wheels of Steel, and he was scratching Good Times and all this stuff like this, and another one Bites the Dust and stuff like this, and I was blown away by this new style of DJing that involves scratching and mixing and blending
Right.
songs together. Because if you remember, if I don't know if you're old enough, but like before hip hop style DJing, the DJs used to let the song just fade down,
Absolutely.
and then the next song would
Absolutely.
fade up, and it
Right.
was not on beat, none of that stuff. And so it was just a different era, it's a different whole way of being. And I'm grateful that I got a chance to be a DJ at that exact moment when it was catching on throughout the nation. And I got to jump on pretty early.
Man, it's amazing. I'm 47, so I've seen a couple eras of music and watched it evolve from the point that I actually fell in love with hip hop and everything too.
Yeah.
So I definitely can connect with what you're saying. And isn't it amazing to still be around to see where it is now and where it has evolved to. A couple things though, I'm not gonna lie, a couple elements of it I do miss from that time period when it was on the ground, the soil, basically chitlin circuit, hitting, really being able to impact and touch and connect with the fans and build that organic fan base just from hand to hand.
Yeah.
I do miss that. I do miss that in a way.
I definitely do. And I feel like there's so many magical parts of the music industry that have disappeared right now. I
Right.
hope they come back in the future. But like for me, simple things like going to the record store, it was a
Mm,
communal experience. So you
right.
you leave your house, so it takes intention. You leave your house, you get in your car, a bicycle, or whatever you're riding with, and you get to that record store. And if you're lucky, you got a record store owner or worker that really knows their music. They're
Right.
telling you about this, telling you about that, and it's a spiritual experience to some extent, even the smell of the records, but also just the being able to touch them and go through the records and look at the cover and
Man,
look
come
at
on,
the back.
Speech, man. You
You know what I'm
taking
saying?
me
Like
there.
these things they were magical. And not only that, even as a creator of the music, going into the studio where you're working with other people, you're working with an engineer, an assistant engineer, you know, you got numerous people working on your project with you. And
Right.
there's this human experience that can't be duplicated when you're doing Pro Tools or Logic or Ableton, where you're just by yourself in a room. I love that. I do that to this day, but there's a lot of magical parts that are missing, and then not to mention just like you said, that homegrown nature of the music.
Right.
I could break a song regionally in Atlanta that would spread to Mississippi and
Right.
Kentucky and on in the Carolinas, and all of a sudden it's blowing up in the south part of the East Coast, then the East Coast, then it goes over to Midwest. And so it's just this organic feeling of a song catching on. Nowadays, companies are owned by huge corporate entities, and they're putting the same playlist in almost every
Right.
sector of the nation. So it's a lot different. Yeah,
Yeah, it definitely is. I totally agree with you with that. Because I wish those moments would be able to come back too, phasing that out, and the mom and pop shops and all that stuff too. It,
exactly.
it was nothing like that experience of just
Nothing
like you
like it.
said, going there, and then they know you built a
Yep.
relationship with the
Yep.
owners, and you come in there just to be able to hang out in the record
That's
stores, and
right.
then
That's
you
right.
you don't know who might come through there.
That's right. You never know
Signing
who.
autographs, signing
Yep.
posters, dropping off CDs or
Yep.
albums or whatever the case may be, but you can never take that experience away. I mean, I like the fact that, the space that we're in, it is creating opportunity for a lot of artists as well, but I still don't think that you can duplicate, because some of the most greatest projects, like you said, were created actually in the studio,
That's
building
right.
it from the ground up. The artists
That's
are
right.
there together working.
Yep.
You can't replace those times right there. You just can't.
No. And the cool thing about the studio experience, another thing to add to that, is that it was a lot of experts. So like, or at least they were great at what they did. So like
Right.
people that were great, at knowing how to mic a kick drum or how to
Right.
mic a
Right.
certain type of vocal. If it's a DMX growl type of vocal, they know what kind of mic you want to use for DMX, as opposed to my voice. You use a certain type of mic for me. So like there's just this excellence that's involved with it, as opposed to DIY or do it yourself type of thing. Um, so I think it's I just think I think there was a lot that's missing from it today.
Right. Now, at what point would you say in the timeline that you decided to want to grab the mic though? At what point did you feel like those skills you really realized, like, you know what? I wanna write. I wanna be in the front like this. I wanna be an artist with it, because you were
Yeah,
DJing, and you could have went that way with it, which you did. You still DJ and stuff and do things or whatever, as a primary career, but
yeah.
you took another path. What spawned that though?
Honestly, it was just that creativity.
Mhm.
As time went on, I was definitely the DJ. I was actually very well known in Milwaukee as DJ Peach, Peech,
Right.
and I started a group called Attack. And in
Attack.
my
Yep.
group was myself, DJ Peach, another DJ that's still popular to this day. His name is Kimmit now, but it was Special K back in the day. And then a
What?
brother, yes, Kimmit is in Atlanta. He does house music, he does dance music. He's really, really a big DJ still to this day.
Right.
But me, Special K, and a brother named T.A. Wiz, who rest in peace was murdered. But um, T.A. Wiz was the lyricist mainly.
Okay.
And I also started doing lyrics. So me and him would rhyme back and forth. He was a much better rhymer than me, but I always wanted to not secretly compete against him, but you know how that friendly competition within the same group,
Right.
that if he spit a crazy verse, I wanted to spit a crazy verse.
That's
So it was
right.
that he helped raise me in a sense lyrically, and I still DJ'd and produced the music. So it was a cool energy that I think fostered my whole love for MCing as an artist. And then, to be honest, I'm still growing. So, like, for that first album, for Arrested Development, my lyrical style was very poetic in a sense. And I
Very,
wasn't
man.
necessarily trying to flow like a
Right.
Rakim or what have you. I was more so trying to tell the story. And I was really
Hmm.
trying to make sure that the story was creative, that I did it in a creative way. Like songs like Dawn of the Dreads, for instance, on the first album, it's a three-layered song. Like a lot of
Right.
people never caught that, but like the song is talking about, two to three different things all at the same time. One is talking about a woman, whose name is Dawn. The other, though, is talking about the dawn of a new consciousness. Throughout the entire song, it sort of builds that narrative. And then the last one is starting off at the night and going into the day of a new day.
A new
So
day. Yeah.
literal the dawn of a new day. So it's talking about all three of those things. And my writing style was more in that sense poetic. I was trying to really write very well thought out, crafted poetic songs, things like Tennessee, walk the roads my forefathers walked, climb the trees my forefathers hung from. So instead of it trying to be flow oriented, I was trying to make sure that I had content that was deep and rich and
Hmm.
rooted in a certain consciousness. So that was my goal at that time. And now, like with our newer albums, I'm trying to keep that element, but add more of like double entendres and triple entendres and flow and stuff like that's more appreciated on that side. So I'm trying to like continue to grow in my lyricism.
Right. Absolutely. I'm loving the new music as well. And I definitely can hear the growth, and the mixture of where you're going with it, and being able to, because see, one thing I've always liked about you as an MC was, you always was a leader, as far as not being afraid to be yourself, and to always put those important messages out there with, um obtaining a platform, and being able to be that voice. I feel like you've never abused that,
Thank you.
abused that
Thank you.
that that you was blessed with, to be able to speak to people on a massive level. And I've always appreciated that from you, always, man.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, bro. I really do. I got that sense of you know, intention from a few things. One, just seeing my mother and father be in the communication business.
Hmm.
My mom owns a newspaper, so at the end of the day, it's communication. So seeing her communicate through that newspaper and how needed it was in the community made me realize that we also needed that same thing in other areas like music and what have you. So that's what I felt with that. But then I also felt like as a people, we needed more outlets for
Right.
consciousness.
Right.
You know, we don't own a whole lot of media outlets. Um, we our export, meaning what Black people in America in particular export, is primarily entertainment, whether it be sports or whether it be TV shows of some sort, or of course music. When you think about what we're putting out throughout the entire planet,
Hmm.
that's the main thing. So I started seeing the need for music to be more, to have more alternatives. You know what I'm saying? Like than just gangster hip hop, or party hip hop, or hip hop about drugs, or
Right.
calling women hoes and things like that. There needed to be more than that with our music, and I felt the very dire like need to make sure that we represented that. And being from Milwaukee, the stats say that it's the worst place for a young Black man to be raised.
Really.
The worst place in America. So I grew up around that. So I saw
Mhm.
the huge disparity between white people living in Milwaukee, which was almost like a utopia,
Right.
compared to Black people living in Milwaukee. And probably more than those that live in New York or Cali or other places where they get to see a lot of
Diversity.
diversity. Well off Black people, poor Black people, well off this, poor this. You get to see a little bit of everything. In Milwaukee, it's not like that. The contrast is very stark. So it helped me keep focused on what I wanted the music to be about, and how dire it was that there was music out there that had this kind of content and yet
Right.
still be dope, still
Right.
be relevant.
Right. You know, going back to something that you said, I just wanted to ask you from your experience in the game, just to get your perspective on it. Why don't we, at the level that we are now, with a lot of, we got a lot of millionaire, a lot of billionaire, melanated people, that's in the business. Um, why don't you think we own our own media outlets or streaming services, or is it somewhat forbidden in a way for us to obtain ownership of that, to where we can, not have to per se go to your Instagrams or Facebooks, or have to utilize these entities or whatever? Why can't we have our own in a way?
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think unfortunately it's because our consciousness isn't where it needs to be as a collective yet. So in other
Mm,
words, it's the mind, it's the mental slavery that Bob Marley talked about.
right.
Because we're in America is about 280 million people, somewhere in there. I'm not sure. Blacks of that, I'm not sure, but somewhere under 50 million or something like that. So you have to get all of us to sign on to a media platform for it to be really substantial and make a big difference. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, a lot of us still want ratchet material primarily. I
Right.
mean, a lot of us are still not wanting that conscious material. So you can get, people that make dope documentaries and dope this, dope that. But if you try to make a platform with all of that, number one, it's tough for us to let everybody know it exists, because we
Mhm.
need those other big platforms like YouTube or Instagram or Twitter to even let people know it exists in the first place. And then number two, getting it populated with great content is tough. And number three, getting all of us to stay on there long enough for it
Mhm.
to make financial sense to exist is
Right.
tough. And I've seen
Right.
it happen so many times, even with BET when it was Black owned. you know, for it to exist really well, it had to have a lot of that ratchet content for us to even, as a general
Grab our
population,
attention.
watch
Right.
it. Yeah, what I'm saying, it had to go worse than MTV. Like we used to have raw and uncut. Like
Yeah, the
like the
late night
videos,
version of
late
yeah.
night
I'm
videos,
with
right?
you.
So
I'm with you.
for us to watch it, that was what got us to go on to not just that show, but I'm saying stuff like that was one of the
To keep
main
us
things
locked in.
to keep us locked in. Exactly. Same difference with Essence Magazine or what have you. Anything black owned, you sort of tend to have to give that certain kind of content for us to really lock in on it. And that's just the
Right.
mental slavery. We've we've unfortunately become convinced that that is our culture. And it's
Hmm.
not actually true, but in our minds, we feel like that's our culture, that's our thing. And so we've
Right.
just embraced it. And yeah.
Right. I have a we got a question in the chat that I would like to hear you comment on. Let me pull it up here on the screen. Um Town Mama said, I have no problem supporting black owned businesses. I do it all the time when I'm out of state. But Milwaukee has a lot of hate towards white people coming in.
Wow, that's sad. Yeah. Well, I will say Milwaukee has been, so oppressed and so marginalized as far as the black population in Milwaukee that there is probably a lot of stored up anger. Obviously, I don't know this person's exact situation, but I will say keep supporting those companies and those businesses. Um, let them know that you definitely want to support them. It does make a huge difference. A lot of black businesses are fine with only getting black support, but just like any other business, whether it's iPhones, and these are huge businesses, but iPhone or Android, it's not just getting white support. It's getting white, Indian, Asian, black,
Right.
Latin.
Worldly
It's
support.
it's getting worldly support, and that's why it's successful. So black companies need that same support in general as well. So I would just encourage that viewer or listener to keep supporting, regardless of what they perceive, in return, and also to know that it's probably just like you know, like like the Ukrainians are towards Russians right now. Russia's doing various things in the Ukraine, and you wouldn't be surprised to hear Ukrainians not love Russians right now. Well,
That's a fact.
that's the same way I think some white people would have to please try to have patience and understand how many black people feel when when it comes to certain white people. They feel oppressed, they feel marginalized, and especially in Milwaukee. So that happens a lot. But I don't know her personal or their personal situation, of course.
Right. I
But it
appreciate you
happens.
touching on that as well too. I really appreciate that. And I'm sure that they appreciate it as well. They said 100.
Word up.
Now, man, now we go from that point. At what point do we form AD though? Because
Yeah.
that was huge. That was really huge and really a blessing for the hip hop atmosphere when you guys hit the scene. So I'm definitely curious to know how the group actually came together because it wasn't just a group to me. I felt like every person played an intricate part in
So
what they
true.
did. You know what I mean? So and it takes great thought to come out like that. So
Yeah.
talk to me about that.
Yeah. So, back in the late 80s, there was a lot of concepts going on in hip hop that were highly successful and highly dope. One was Public Enemy. I'll just use it as a perfect example.
Right.
So Public Enemy had Chuck D as the hard rhymer, right? And then it had Professor Griff as, if I'm not mistaken, like the Minister of Information. And then you
Right.
had the S1Ws, which was the security detail. You
Right.
had Flavor Flav, which was the comic relief in a sense, or just the hype dude, but silly and just total like not deep as far as the concepts,
Entertaining.
just entertaining, right? So you had all of these concepts that made that group extremely intriguing to the public, right? And there was many other groups that had similar things like X Clan or even Tribe Called Quest in its early years. So Arrested Development was coming up at that time period where concepts and groups was very, very inviting and accepted. And I wanted to create a group that had different elements, part of the community. Like, so
Hmm.
for me, it was a matter of having a DJ, which was my man Headliner. When I first moved to Atlanta, I met him at the Art Institute, which is where we both went to school. And I put up a flyer looking for a DJ. and he was looking at the flyer, just interested in it. And I saw him and I talked to him, and we became best friends. So me and
Right.
my man Headliner, he started DJing. I actually had to teach him how to DJ a little better because he had just learned, but he was a great dude, great friend. And I taught him, what I knew on the DJing tip, and he became the DJ. That allowed me to really focus on beat making and rhyming. But
Right.
then we started doing shows in Atlanta, and our shows was very freestyle oriented, sort of like where I would rhyme, we would have beats that I had made or whatever playing on my sampler, and then we would invite people up from the crowd to do different things
Yeah.
like paint, African dance, African drums, djembes, model, poetry. And so it became this very eclectic, almost like Soul to Soul's album. If you remember Soul to Soul's
Of course.
first album, you know, Jazzy was like the main DJ behind Soul to Soul, but he had a lot of guests on the record. You know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? And it was almost like DJ Khaled, but way, way before all of that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And so it was cool because there was a lot of entities, a lot of singers. We got to know Karen Wheeler from that record. We got to know, a lot of dope entertainers from that record. So we was doing similar things on stage where it was like, okay, well, headline is the DJ, I'm the MC, but we're going to bring up these drummers tonight. Then next time we're going to have these painters. So if you saw our first video, Tennessee, you saw a brother named Radcliffe Bailey, who's now a famous painter, but at the time he wasn't. He's painting all over the video, like on his
I remember that.
yo. And same with the Mr. Window video. He's actually in that video, and he's painting as well on the road, and he's painting on the streets. Well, that was just part of our show. Like we was bringing our show to the video. So long story short, we wanted to have this concept of a community on stage instead of just it being like he's the DJ, I'm the rapper, like Will Smith and Fresh Prince and
Right.
Jazzy Jeff, which was dope. Don't get me wrong, but we wanted to bring a different energy. So it was more so whoever we could bring on stage, and then that became tough when we got a record deal because the label was like, well, we could only bring 6 people or so. We can't bring 20 people on the road. It's too
Right,
costly.
right.
We got to get 20 hotel rooms, 20 plane tickets. It's crazy. So um, I sort of narrowed it down to 6 people that we absolutely needed. And
I know that was hard, Speech.
it was very hard. It was very
Man.
hard. Razadon, Airly Tari, Moncho Ishii, Baba OJ, me, Headliner, and I think that's everybody. So that was the crew. And, Baba OJ was the elder in the group, which was very conceptual because he didn't spit rhymes or nothing. Baba was 57 when we was 22. You know what I'm saying?
Really?
So he was way over 30 years older than us, but he was the elder. And,
Right.
that concept to me just came from our ancestors and from our Black culture, like real Black culture, where our elders are respected. They're loved in real Black culture. We've gotten away from a lot of our culture, but that was something that was very important to us and still is in certain places. So, I just wanted to bring that type of vibe with our group, and it definitely was, accepted.
It was magical. It was
Thank you.
magical, man. Like, and I don't think that it's been duplicated in that way at all. You know, speaking of groups though, because you're right, groups were popular then. I feel like you guys came in at a really, really good time because when I think about that time period, the thing I really liked most about that time period was everybody was just trying to be original. Nobody
Yes.
was trying to be, music was in a great space then. That's
Yep.
why I feel like
Yep.
when you guys came in, it just fit that space and time era. The timing couldn't have been perfect because can you imagine now trying
Yep.
to,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Oh,
But
definitely,
with
bro.
groups though, talk to me about the group perspective because we don't see as many groups as we did, but then we
Yeah.
always hear these stories about groups
Yeah.
that it's just you got egos involved, you
Yeah.
got all these different elements, so many different personalities and stuff like that, and it's
Facts.
like we kind of get off of the overall concept of why we're doing this, period.
Facts.
Talk to
Yeah.
me about groups though, because you guys went through some difficulties as well.
We sure did. Yeah. Um, I'll say that a lot of those difficulties come when the music and the business coincide.
Mhm.
Music business really is an oxymoron. So we forced it together in this culture we live in and in this capitalistic society we forced it together and we mashed it and we try to fit it, you know.
Right,
And the
right.
truth is, it's really tough. And the truth of the matter is that we were all good as a group prior to business, but with the business entering into it, it became very tough. And I think that's when egos and greed and um, jealousy and envy become magnified when
Hmm.
you have a lot of money involved. And we did, because that album sold 4 million albums.
Oh yeah.
And you know, we won all kinds of awards. We was very, very highly successful, doing really big venues and worldwide, um, thoroughly critically acclaimed, but also thoroughly popular. So, you know, that stuff was tough on a first album. So from a group perspective, I think we all had a crash course in business and fame
Hmm.
and having money for the first time in our entire lives. Um, all of these things were fresh and new to us. So I think all of that played a role in the problems that we faced as a group. And it was really tough. It really was. And as you know, we're still together now, and it's we're way better because
Right.
we've matured. You know what I mean? But back in those days, you know, God bless us, because at that time the youngest member was 16. That was Mosho
Wow.
Ichi. Mosho Ichi was 16. Headliner and I were 21 and 22 when we actually took off, not when we started the group, but when we
Hmm.
took off. So when we started the group, you know, that was 3 years, 5 months, 2 days earlier than that. So, you know what I'm saying? That was like, you know, 18, you know, somewhere in there. So it's pretty, we're kids, you know what I mean?
Right.
At the end of the day.
You know, I'm just I've always been a fan since you guys hit the scene and when I was introduced to you guys' music. So that's why I wanted to touch on that, and I appreciate you touching on it because I'm not gonna lie, it hurted me.
Yeah.
You know, because certain things of it was kind of public a little bit, which is how we even knew that you guys were going through some difficulties within the group.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and to see you guys, and like you said, maturity does kick in. You go through some things, the experience. It's not like it's a blueprint or a book or guiding you
Facts.
on
Yep.
fame and how to handle it and all of this stuff like that or whatever. And then, like you said, coming from certain spaces in life and then, obtaining a certain amount of money.
Yep.
Um, from a mental aspect for you, though, with coming from a more rooted background, um, mentally though, when fame kicks in and the world knows you and you're moving around and you're performing in front of massive people and they're screaming your name and all of this stuff like that, because we see people derail, because I feel like, even on that side of it, not as a consumer, but actually being in the business on that side, you guys deal with a lot mentally as well. It could be mentally challenging. Talk to me about the transition mentally from you from, hey, being a guy who's just DJing, and freestyling and doing open mics and different things like that, to being speech known, arrested development. We out here, we everywhere, we on TV, we accepting awards, we performing. Talk to me about that mentally for you.
Yeah, that is extremely tough. It almost feels like two alternate realities, because on a Monday you're one dude,
Hmm.
and on a Tuesday you're another person in people's eyes. You know what I'm
Right,
saying? So like Monday you was nobody in people's eyes, and Tuesday you're somebody. So they're treating you 100% different,
right,
and it's
right,
just freaking you out in your mind, because you know you're in this same shell, you're in the same tent that you
right,
were on Monday.
right.
But on Tuesday, everybody's treating you different. So if anybody can try to imagine that, that's what it feels like to be famous and to have that type of success. Everyone's treating you differently. The phone calls that wouldn't be answered before are being answered. The women that wasn't interested are interested. You know what I'm saying? The business opportunities that weren't there are there. Like everything has changed, and it feels like an instant. And I talk a lot about it on a song, ironically, on our new album for the F and Love, called "Bout It."
Hmm.
And then I also talk about it in a song called "I Don't Care." So "I Don't Care" is basically talking about the internal problems that we had in the group, and
Hmm.
then the song "Bout It" is talking about that rise to fame that was unexpected and just like mind blowing. So it's very tough. It's surreal. it feels like an out of body experience because, like I said, for you, you wake up and you rise your head from that pillow and you live in this same shell, and people are treating you a certain ways and things are happening to you that are surreal. You're at an award show, you're getting all these accolades and all this praise, but then that same shell lays right back down on a pillow by themselves. You know what
Mm,
I'm saying? And
that's deep.
you're still in your same old skull, you're in your same old spirit, your same soul. And so it's a very interesting and surreal reality that happens with fame. And I personally feel like fame is, to me, like a like almost like a demon possession or a
Mhm.
possession of some sort, whether it's demon or angel, angelic possession, because it possesses different people at different times. It doesn't remain with everybody at all times. So
Right.
some people are extremely famous, and then some people are no longer famous.
I know,
So
right?
so that's what I mean by possession. There's a point when fame possesses you and it has you, and then there's points when it leaves and it touches somebody else. And so that's also surreal. Like the whole experience is very surreal. The access that you get and the non-access that you get, the
Mhm.
praise that you get, the praise you don't get, is very surreal. And in a lot of ways it's totally out of your control too.
Man, nobody's ever put it down like that. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's deep, and I love the way that you explained that, because that's exactly what it is. And like you said, it is something that's uncontrollable at times. And then
Facts.
if you're not rooted or have some form of connection to a
Facts.
higher being, you
Yep.
could lose your essence and
You
your
can lose
soul
yourself.
within that, especially when it's taking away from you, or as you said, when it leaves you and go to somebody else, find
That's
another
right.
prospect to go inside, and you know what I mean? That's
That's
deep
facts.
speech.
Well,
That's deep.
so many of the people that have committed suicide
Mhm.
or just lost their way through various escape mechanisms, whether it be drugs or alcohol or both, it's because of that. It's trying to figure out that surreal sort of alternative reality, that alternate reality that you've been living in. It's very tough for a lot of people to reconcile that. Obviously I've never time traveled. I felt like I have some of these long flights I'd be on for the foreign trips,
Right.
but time travel, if I had to imagine what that's like, that probably feels the same way, where you find yourself in 2022 and then all of a sudden if you time travel and you're back in 1886. It's just like you're the same person, but everything around you has changed. And without you having any control of that, it's just a very interesting, mind boggling thing.
Right. What keeps you so inspired though? And I know it's probably layers and layers of things that keep you inspired. I mean, have you ever got to a point where you didn't want to do music anymore?
Definitely. It's happened to me a couple times. There was one stint of time, somewhere between 1999 and 2000, somewhere in there, where I literally could not come up with an idea. I was totally uninspired, and um, so I was just like at a place where I was like, this isn't for me anymore. I'm done.
Right.
Thank God. I mean, some of my most inspired work has happened since then. So it
Hmm.
was a hump that I just had to overcome. But yeah, I think what keeps me passionate is the love for the art and the music. So for me, there's been times when record sales had been so low that I had to reevaluate why I was doing this. Like, is it to make hit
Mm.
records or is it the art that I love? And I concluded that it was the art. And when you do it for that reason, whether you're on a high, whether you're on your lows, or just coasting, the motivation stays the same. And that's
Right.
to make great music. And what we were talking about earlier about the magic of making great music and what that
Hmm.
does. And we felt it ourselves. So it's not because I
Absolutely.
want to do it for someone else. Many people have done that for me. They've done that for us, for your listeners. So when I remember that, then I remember how magical it is to put out a record, and when people listen to it for the first time, and the chord progressions or the rhyme scheme or the concept of the record blows their mind. That's dope, and that's what I live for. Like, that's to me a passionate purpose for doing all of this.
Man, that's dope. And it's interesting you say that too, because it's like I feel like when we are so far away from that aspect of it. I feel
Right.
like we number one, we forget the blessings of the opportunity, because I
Yep.
mean we're able to take care of our families,
Yep.
doing something that we love to do. I think that when you get so far away from remembering that, and
So
and
true,
and,
bro.
and where it all started, and I think that that's a large part of the problem. And then I think now, it's kind of not as special as it used to be, the way it
Mm,
used to make me feel, the
yeah.
space that we're in right now, because you don't really have time to fall in love with a project anymore,
Yeah.
because it's moving so fast and it's so many artists coming out every
Yeah.
second. Somebody's coming out, and then everybody wants to be an artist now. Nobody's inspiring to be anything else. I feel like we're losing value in that aspect of people aspiring to be anything else. For we just gonna have a world full of artists.
Exactly.
You feel
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Don't nobody
Oh,
want to
I
be
feel
nothing
you.
else.
100%. Like, there's so many times we're performing now and the whole crowd is just artists. They're just other artists. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
man. It's
it's not
like
even fans anymore. They're just artists. It's funny.
right.
Um, yeah, of course, the music has been cheapened because there's so much of it. So
Hmm.
it's like the phrase a dime a dozen. Whenever you get things for cheap or free, which is most people get streaming now for basically free, you know, $10 a month or whatever their service costs. We used to pay $10 a record, you know what I'm saying,
That's a
just for one
fact.
record.
That's a fact.
So now it's $10 a month for a million records or whatever you can hold in your, in your
Right.
playlist. So it has become cheapened, and yeah, the motivation is different too, because when corporations started to take over so much of pop culture, not mom and pop shops, but actual huge corporations and conglomerates, then even rhymers started to speak corporate language. They started saying that they're moguls. They started
Right.
saying that they're
Right.
bosses. We used to be called artists and MCs. We used to be like the antithesis of a boss per se, or
Right.
or a mogul. We was artists. It's different. The whole motivation became different. Now it's about making money. So everybody's trying to diversify. They want to make sure they get their drink product on. They want to make sure they get their music going, but they got to get their clothing line and all the various things that people do to make more and more money. That's become the goal as opposed to the art anymore.
Speech, let me ask you this, man. Because I could talk to you forever, man, because you just a different type of brother to me. From a support standpoint, though, in the space that we in right now, transitioning from the era and space that you guys, that timeline you came in the game, going
Yeah,
through all of the motions, the experiences, the traveling to growing, getting a deal on, or a major label deal,
yeah,
award shows, performing, doing all of these things or whatever. From transitioning from that period into this new social era, and
yeah,
everything social, and you got to video everything and
yeah,
every aspect,
yeah,
because the mystique
yeah,
has definitely been erased away from the business.
totally.
Totally. Talk to me about that transition for you as an artist, coming in from the space that you came from, that more organic space, though, into this
Yeah,
whole fictitious creative
yeah,
space. You think they own the private jet, but you can rent that too now, and you
exactly.
can buy
Yeah,
the billboard now.
yep,
You can
yep,
I mean you can create whatever you want to create for the social media. Talk to me about that transition, though, for
yeah.
you in this space right now.
Yeah, everything is smoke and mirrors now. Well, it's a tough transition, and it's a consistent transition, right?
Right.
Because the music industry is changing faster than it ever was before. Now, we're getting into, which I guess is not doing as well right now, but just a minute ago, NFTs were becoming a thing. Like we're going from hard records and cassettes and CDs to streaming, and like I said, NFTs, and you know it's just, the industry has changed so much that if you want to participate, you have to learn more and more new skills.
Hmm.
So even, like, for instance, on our last two albums, which were executive produced by Kafiga, a dope hip hop artist, underground producer, very dedicated, to the principles of hip hop, which is what I love
Right.
about him. One of the things I love about him. And so me and him connected. And I had to learn because, I've been at this for 30 years. He's
Right.
been at it for a minute, but not as long as me. And so I had to learn a lot from him as far as how do you market a record nowadays compared to back in
Exactly.
the day, right?
Exactly.
So I had to get very engaged on social media for the sake of the music. But the principle was why I was doing it, meaning the principle of making sure this music gets heard, making sure people can enjoy it, as opposed to it's what I naturally would have done. So I had to keep learning these new techniques, learning, that the guest artists that we put on our albums really should help us make a difference with spreading this music out there. These
Right.
artists need to be engaged with their fan base as well as dope, whereas before I just would have thought about how dope they were. I wouldn't have really cared, what kind of engagement they have. Whereas Configure actually taught me that, that's a very big tool that we could use right now. So if you get the right artist, then that's engaged with their audience, then you could actually have a dope collaboration, but also a great opportunity to reach more fans and get
Hmm.
more of a wide promotion of the record. For instance, our first single, Vibe,
Oh,
on the new
featuring Big
album,
Daddy Kane. Oh,
Big
that's a
Daddy
man. That's
Kane,
one huge,
Cleveland
man.
P. Jones, and Tasha LaRae, produced by Configure. You know, when we got Big Daddy Kane on, it was a big honor. I love Kane. I've done shows with Kane and KRS from back, many years ago. We've known each other for many years. But when we got him on, and when we realized that he was doing the verses joint, um, Swiss Beats and Timberland's verses,
Right.
and he was doing it against KRS One. And that was like one of the biggest verses in my opinion, ever. And we decided, I called Kane the night before verses, and I said, Kane, we weren't even planning to release Vibe as our first single, but since you're doing verses, are you cool with us dropping this the night of verses and telling people to go peep the single after they enjoy the verses? He was
Right.
like, bro, do what you got to do, make it happen. And so we decided to drop it the next day, but it was the dopest idea we could have ever done because so many more people were exposed to this new Arrested Development music, to the
Hmm.
fact that we collaborated with Kane, because Kane was heavy on their minds
Exactly.
right after the verses joint, and it was
Smart
all
move.
people was talking about the whole week. So I
Very
say all of
smart move.
that to say these are new techniques that you use in order to make sure that music gets heard, because there's nothing more demoralizing and discouraging than working your butt off on some great music that nobody knows exists. You know what I'm
That's a
saying?
fact, man. I'm talking about. I'm that's so real. And a lot of people, artists that's trying to evolve and figure this whole thing out of self-marketing
Yeah,
and ways to continue to remain relevant. um
facts.
you know what I want to ask you though? I want to ask you this too, and this is probably off of the subject or whatever, but just because I know you've been in, you got 30 plus in, you know, why is it that um let's just say women artists, is it something that maybe you might have heard or seen or might have even wanted to know yourself or know? Why is it that, because in that space and time, we seen the Latifahs and all of the other ladies come together, ladies first, all of this
Yeah.
stuff, you and I too, all of these things. Why is it like a label thing for certain artists, whether it's women or men that may be big or on a certain level, to not work together or not go on a tour together? It will be colossal for the fans.
Yeah, I thoroughly agree with that. And yeah, I think that it has become, and I don't know the total answer, so I'm just as curious as you,
Right.
but I have seen this switch between people coming together and doing tours together that have similar energies and coming from similar places, to the switch of doing shows on your own, even being on stage 100% by yourself without a band, without dancers. I don't know if you've seen this trend, but like groups or like artists like a Drake won't have anybody on stage with them, period. Like not even
Right.
a band, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? Or same difference with, Jay-Z in the later years of his career, where there's just nobody on stage. It's sort of become this me only generation of thought where we've become less artists and more of a brand, and therefore we don't want to dilute the brand by having other people on the bill or other people on
Mm,
stage when you could just focus on yourself and yourself only. So, um, unfortunately, too, we pit a lot of people that are our contemporaries or maybe our peers. We pit each other against the other. So there can't be a Nicki Minaj and a Cardi B or a Megan Thee Stallion on the same tour. Instead, they got to be against each other type thing.
exactly. And I feel like it's really, really harming the culture, man. And it's because, these people are on such big platforms that it's really shaping the younger generation a certain type of way, even musically. It's shaping them as well, because I feel like we're in a bad space, man. To me,
I
because
agree.
and it really, really hurts, I guess, with me seeing so many different eras of music, and watching it become what it's becoming, and morphing into something else or whatever, more of a reality based type
Yeah.
culture or whatever. It's sad, but when I hear the collaboration with Kane on Vibe, and
Yeah.
things like that or whatever, it just, it's like refreshing to my ears to
Thank you,
hear it.
man.
You know
Thank
what
you.
I
I
mean?
love it too. I don't know if you've seen my documentary called The Nigga Factory, but it's on
No,
YouTube. I
I gotta go
want you to
check that
check it
out.
out. Your listeners, go peep it out. It's on YouTube. It's called the NIGGA Factory. It's by me. It's a documentary that explains a 400-year marketing campaign to demolish the image of Black people.
Mm,
And it goes into a lot of what you and I are talking about right now. And so, yeah, go to brotherspeech.com. It's on YouTube, but you can go straight to it from my website, brotherspeech.com, and it's called The Nigga Factory. Now, on that, it goes into depth about why it is that a lot of this culture is changing so quickly.
really?
And I think people will deeply enjoy it. It's a deep but fun documentary. I think it's fun. It's great for kids, but it's raw. So check it out.
I'm definitely going to check that out. Now, I gotta ask you this. As far as the group, when you guys are creating, what's that creative process for Arrested Development, when you all are creating and it's so much creativity in the room? How do we decide, hey, yeah, this is the one, this is what we're going with? Is it just organic vibes, or does it get difficult trying to decide what are we going to execute with and put out? What's that process like as a group collectively?
It's interesting with us because I started the group as the producer and lyricist. So therefore, I'm making the beats and I'm doing the rhymes, I'm creating the hooks. So it was a very interesting way that we started off our whole collective. And so when we're in the studio now, I'm still primarily doing that because that's what I do. And now I'm working with numerous producers like a Configure, like I just mentioned. I'm doing some beats on our newer project that it's not out yet, with a brother named Soul Messiah, a brother named Chris Acosta. Of course, I still do beats. So from the beats and music standpoint, it's a lot of what I'm doing. But then from a lyrical standpoint, a lot of that is what I'm doing as well, along with the MCs like a Kane or Sugar Hill Gang or Master Ace or Moni Love. They're, of course, writing their own verses
Right,
as
right.
well. But then the group gets very involved on our concerts. So, like when we start to do shows, then everybody starts to get involved on the live instrumentation of that show, how we're going to voice this song that's on record in a
Mhm.
live way that's going to take it to a next level. So they get really involved on that level, um, because our group is interesting. Like from an MC standpoint, there's really only two MCs in our group, and one
Right.
of them is relatively newer. His name is One Love. He's been with me for 20 years, but prior to that, it was just me as an MC. And then we had dancers though, and we had percussionists. So Roz, back in the original group members, Roz was on drums, but he did reggae chant. So he created the bit ba 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 bit ba 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 bit ba 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 section.
Right.
So he did, and he created logos. So he was creative in that sense. Ishi was a total dancer. She didn't write songs at all. So she was doing dance and African dance, and she brought that sense. Airly Tari didn't rhyme or anything, but she made our clothes and she had a dope vibe. So she was the hype woman. So she
She
was the
was
one like
dope too, man.
exactly. She was the one that was talking about a game of horseshoes. So that was her contribution.
Right,
So
right.
it was this very eclectic way of just adding your energy, but it wasn't always on tape. Sometimes it was just the visuals. Like Baba OJ didn't do any recording with us, but he came out on every tour with us because he was our elder and he gave us spiritual advice and he was that spiritual symbolic, presence in the crew. So it was a very interesting way that we came about it.
I love that, man. Let's give some shout outs, man, to the group, man, your family,
Yeah,
your fans that's been supporting for years. Anybody that you want to give roses to right now, man. Let's go on and give them their flowers, man.
no doubt. So I think speaking of the group, I give roses to all the generations of Arrested Development, from Dion Ferris, who was an extended family member who sang the heck out of Tennessee and crushed it. She sang
Yeah,
on Fishing for Religion and on Give a Man a Fish and just killed it. But also a sister named Paulette, who killed it on Mama's Always on Stage, that first album. Sister Nadira later on killed it on Africa's Inside Me and things like that. So I'm gonna give love to all the Arrested Development members of every generation, which is a few generations of members. I'm giving love to all of them. And then I want to give love to Kafiga and the producer tip, because he really brought us back to that hip hop roots that we really wanted to be at. So I got to give him love. And then I've given love to the present generation of the group right now, whether it's Farida, JJ Boogie, One Love, and Will, Rick Benjamin, Johnny, all of these people who, in my opinion, right now, we have the tightest show that I've ever been able to witness with Arrested Development. So, you know, fans might have different eras that they like the most, but for me, I like this era right now. We're really laying it down heavy, and it's
right.
incredible. So I'm showing love to all of those folks right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Man, what could we look forward to? I know you guys are always cooking, constantly working. And also I want to ask you, anybody in the new space that we're in right now that maybe caught your ears that you like, oh, that person's dope.
Oh, definitely. There's a lot of artists that I love, whether it be a Drake or whether it be um, the Coast Contra. I like their new single that they have. It's really dope. They remind me of Leaders of the New School, like a new
Mhm.
version of Leaders of the New School. Um, there's a brother that a lot of these people have been on our records, but um, whether it be Four Eyes or whether it be, Lish. It's just so many dope MCs and artists that Del P, that I deeply respect and love their hustle. I love what they're putting out there. Mark X, I call him Mark X, but he goes by MRKX. I mean SX. To me, he has the dopest hip hop record that I've heard in a long time. It's called Normalized Growth, and
Really?
yeah,
What's
it's
his name? What's
it's
his name again?
it's spelled MRKSX, and he
MRK.
doesn't even get on social media, but he releases some of the dopest records. He's from Detroit, and him and Clint Carter, Clint's on the beats, he's on the rhymes. MRKSX, I love that dude, and I love what him and Clint are doing. To me, it's incredible. Um, so a lot of those artists are people that I'm really digging. And of course, I was just listening to Kendrick Lamar's new album last night. So,
Pretty dope.
just, yeah, it's pretty dope. So it's, just listening to music. I still love, you know, numerous artists that are coming through.
Absolutely. Let's put the social platforms out there in ways that people can actually connect with you. Of course, they can go over to your website and also get tapped in. But is there any other way that artists maybe could reach out to you for a collaboration or anything like that? What's the way to do that?
Yeah, you can go to brotherspeech.com, and there's a contact section on my website. People would be surprised. We actually answer the stuff. And so you could go to, contact speech and just write. If you want to do a collab, if you want to just, shout us out, if you want to find out when the next show is, all of that's on the website. Arrested Development site is called arresteddevelopmentmusic.com. And on social media, I'm at speech underscore underscore. So two underscores. I noticed on here you got one underscore, but it's
Yeah,
two.
we got one underscore and there's two underscores. Okay.
Yep, two
Damn
underscores.
it.
So I know, right? It's all good. And then so it's at speech underscore underscore, and then at arrested development underscore underscore as well on IG. So yeah, you can find us
And we'll put
anywhere.
all of that stuff in the context once we will do the correction, and we'll put all that in the context when we drop it. It'll all be there. The websites and everything will be there, man. And I know you got something coming, man. Like you guys are cooking. Is there anything we can look forward to? Are we going to see an Arrested Development documentary or anything like that?
That's a great point. Right now, I've been like putting finishing touches on a Arrested Development script because our story is really unique. Our impact on the industry is really unique. You
Right.
know, this is prior to Goody Mob, prior to Goody, to Outkast, prior to Ti, and all of the trap music that's come from the South. Was this group called Arrested Development, and it's a story that I think people need to hear. So I'm really excited about putting that to script, and we're in the stages of finishing that now, and hopefully that'll be out by next year or the year after.
Absolutely. Well, we definitely looking forward to it, man. Like for real. And for any artists in closing, any artists or people in the world in general that because a lot has happened in the last 2 years, man, and some change.
Yeah, so
A
true.
lot of things have happened. um People are depressed, just so many things happen. Any uplifting or encouraging words that you could leave for anybody, for the listeners and everybody that's on here right now?
Yeah, I think the main thing is to be authentic in who you really are and bring to the world what only you can bring, that unique story that you have, that unique background that you come from. Bring that to the world because we're waiting to hear fresh stories. Don't be just a copy of somebody that you like right now. Bring something unique to the table, and that'll help get you through not only to fame, but in the hard times like what we've been going through in the last 2 years. It'll help you get through those times too if you remember who you are and what you bring to the table. Keep bringing it. We're looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Speech, man. Listen, I gotta tell you, it's been an absolute honor being able to just talk to you, man, for this time period. I really, really appreciate you, man. Shout out to Strong Jewel again, man, for
Shout
making
out to
this
Strong Jewel.
amazing connection happen, man. Because, like I said, this is something that I've always wanted to do was to be able to just talk to you. I can't wait to have the opportunity to meet you in person, man. Just to give you a hug, man, and just tell you, how much I appreciate what you guys have blessed us with over the years and still blessing us with, man. It's just truly refreshing. And we wishing you more blessings and more success with everything that you're doing right now and everything that you guys are going to be doing in the future, man, for real.
Thank you very, very much, brother. Let me say that you're excellent at what you do. I'm
Thank you.
grateful to have done this. This was very much a worthwhile interview, man. And I can't say that about all the interviews, but this one, fantastic. You do great work, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, man. And once you come on the Vibe Show, you're a part of the Vibe family now. So you have our support 1,000.
Appreciate it.
And we can't wait to get you back on here. This is home. You can come back on here anytime. You guys got new projects or anything that you're promoting. Of course, we'll get with you. We collaborating and we'll make sure that we can help and promote that on our end as well, just to keep the push going.
Thank you, brother. I sent you a bunch of links on our private chat too while we was
Okay.
talking, so you'll see them there.
I'll post all those links. We'll get them all posted up. It's the one and only Speech, man. We love you, my brother.
Love y'all too, man. Stay strong.
Absolutely. Y'all make sure that y'all go and tap in. Make sure that you go and visit the website right now at www.brotherspeech.com. It's a beautiful website. He has absolutely everything on there that you are looking for or that you are wondering about. It's all right there on the website. They got the tour dates. They got everything that's coming up. It's all on the website. You make sure y'all go and tap in. Also, y'all make sure y'all go and follow Speech on Instagram at speech__. Y'all make sure y'all get it right, man. If you're not subscribed to the Vibe Show 97.9, please hit that subscribe button, turn on those bell notifications for more exclusive interviews coming up. Also, make sure y'all rush over there right now. Y'all can go and request that vibe featuring Big Daddy Kane. We got it in rotation. Y'all make sure y'all go over there and run that thing up and request it, request it, request it. Y'all, it's the Vibe Show 97.9 with my guy, the one and only Speech. We want to definitely shout out everybody that was on the live that showed up, man, and showed so much love and support. We really, really appreciate y'all just for tapping in and showing so much love to my special guest. Miss Me and Speech, we out of here. It's Sunday, y'all. Enjoy the rest of y'all Sunday. Y'all know my slogan: more love, less hate makes the world a better place. It's the Vibe Show. Me and Speech. We out of here. Peace.
Peace.